Formula One is often praised for its innovation, and while most are improving racing, others are just there to disturb the competitors during the race. And the latter is exactly what the FIA is trying to clamp down on again. This time, the FIA is going all in against flexible wings on the F1 cars. Flexi wings have been a source of contention for the governing body for decades. Teams are constantly chasing this region since nothing is absolutely rigid, and hence there are always ways around any understanding of what characterizes non-flexing. But the teams have been taking it too far, causing the FIA to ban some parts. The loose flexi-wing rules and upgrades have been a long-running drama in Formula One, with teams looking for loopholes in the regulations to allow for flexibility in front and rear wing parts, with the FIA now adopting a stronger stance over apparent concerns that the rules are being violated. There are significant advantages to be achieved, not only in lowering drag at high speeds while keeping downforce when needed, but also in guiding wing outwash into the most aerodynamically productive regions. The FIA is determined to maintain control of this component because the whole point of the 2022 regulations was to keep the wake of the vehicles pretty clean. So following observations across several cars, the FIA has submitted a draft proposal to all Formula One teams for a new technical rule aimed at strengthening the policing of the flexibility of wings on F1 cars. Rumblings over the flexibility of various teams' front wings have been continuous throughout the 2023 season, with the FIA wanting to ensure the spirit of the regulations and the fundamental goal of making following another car simpler in F1's new era are met. We are continually monitoring the deflection characteristics of aerodynamic assemblies to ensure cars adhere to the requirements of Technical Regulations Article 3.2.2, an FIA statement says. This is partly through the deflection tests that are specified in Article 3.15, but also through ad hoc tests and inspections that can go beyond what teams might usually expect. These additional observations can lead to a need to clarify how we believe the regulation should be interpreted. There has been a draft of technical directives on the subject of bodywork flexibility, issued in response to observations across several cars, and ensures that the FIA and teams all have a common understanding of the way we should interpret the regulations. Article 3.2.2 of the Technical Regulations addresses aerodynamic influence. All aerodynamic components or bodywork influencing the car's aerodynamic performance must be rigidly secured and immobile with respect to their frame of reference, it says. Furthermore, these components must produce a uniform, solid, hard, continuous impervious surface under all circumstances. Any device or construction that is designed to bridge the gap between the sprung part of the car and the ground is prohibited under all circumstances. But why would teams even want some of their wings to be flexible? The answer is simple: create the car's wake more turbulent. Outwashing airflows makes the following car's wake more turbulent, making things more difficult. Methods of installing the wings have been thoroughly studied, but the FIA is now paying close attention to the interior structures of the front wings, which resulted in a draft rule change for the teams. The FIA providing a draft to the teams is usual process and presumably suggests that the new technical guidelines will be implemented mid-season in the coming weeks. Singapore seems the most likely first race without flexi wings. The modifications are more of a tightening of present policing than a revolutionary redesign. The teams learned about these new regulations before the Dutch Grand Prix, and the race is now on to secure compliance for the Challenger's front and rear wings. This technical order comes only a few weeks after the FIA's senior race director advisor, Herbie Blash, stated that flexi wings are still a source of worry in a Formula One scene, where exploiting grey zones is becoming increasingly difficult. I think the only area that I would question today is maybe the flexing of the wing elements, that however much weight the FIA have put on the wings, when you actually look on a TV on an onboard shot, and you can actually see the wings move, Blash remarked on the Beyond the Grid podcast. And I remember I used to sit there with a ruler trying to work out on the screen and race control how far that front flap is going down or that rear wing is moving. So after this weekend's Italian Grand Prix, Formula One teams will face a new crackdown on flexi wings, with the FIA seeking to counter practices it considers are unlawful. The FIA has been taking a hard look at flexible wings throughout the first half of this season, as it feels teams have been stretching the boundaries of what is legal. The suggested adjustments are directed at any individual team. Aston Martin had consistently denied that it had modified its front wing specification earlier this year, owing to worries that it was violating the flexing restrictions, but rather represent a general improvement in enforcement. However, as part of an increased effort to prevent any attempt to circumvent the laws, the FIA has now released an official technical guideline describing what it considers inappropriate designs for flexible bodywork. The FIA states in TD 018, a copy of which was sent to teams ahead of the Dutch GP weekend, that it believes teams are utilizing regions of purposefully designed localized compliance, as well as relative motion between adjacent components, to deliver a significant boost to aerodynamic performance. Any design that performs in this manner is in violation of Article 3.2.2 of F1's technical regulations, which specifies that any components influencing a car's aerodynamic performance must be rigidly secured and immobile with respect to their frame of reference defined in Article 3.3. Furthermore, under all conditions, these components must provide a consistent, solid, hard, continuous, impermeable surface. The FIA was motivated to move because it believes teams are using sophisticated technologies that twist and flex front and rear wing parts in ways that conventional load testing cannot detect. It is stated unequivocally that assembly designs that exploit localized compliance or degrees of freedom are not permitted. The FIA has carefully highlighted 4 significant design features that it believes are in violation of the technical standards, but indicates that there may be more concepts at work that are also prohibited. They are as follows. Number 1. Wing elements that can translate vertically, longitudinally, or laterally relative to the bodywork that they are fixed to. Number 2. Wing elements that can rotate relative to the bodywork that they are fixed to, such as rotating around one fixing. Number 3. Designs that utilize elastometric fillets, compliant sections of wing profile, or thin flexible laminate at a junction that can either distort, deflect out of plane, or twist to permit localized deflection relative to the bodywork the component is attached to. Number 4. Designs that utilize soft trailing edges to wing elements to prevent localized cracking as a result of component assembly deflection. The only exceptions will be for floor assembly, bib bodywork, and the introduction of a tiny lateral gap to aid in the sealing of front wing flaps. Previously, the FIA would respond to teams' flexi-wing antics by increasing the load tests that take place in the garage. However, the realization that teams may be using clever trickery to make the wings flex in ways that cannot be checked when the car is stationary has prompted a change in approach. Teams must now provide assembly drawings and cross-sections demonstrating the attachment of the front wing components to the nose, as well as the attachment of the rear wing elements to the end plates, rear impact structure, and pylons. Furthermore, teams must provide identical photos demonstrating the attachment of the rear wing pylons to the rear impact structure. These designs will enable the FIA to gain a better understanding of how the wing components have been constructed and whether any team has created their elements in a way that allows them to bend and provide an aerodynamic advantage. The FIA has delayed the adoption of its new stance until the Singapore Grand Prix next month due to the potential work required by teams to ensure full compliance with the regulations, which means competitors can continue with their current designs until the end of this weekend's Monza race. Teams must submit all relevant drawings depicting their wing designs by September 8th. These will be studied by the FIA in the following week and approved or banned. A lot of fuss about small details on the cars, but does it really do something in reality? Well, we can't be sure how much of an effect these flexible wings have, but we can have a look at some across the grid to make some comparisons. We found some front wing cam footage in race circumstances from Red Bull, Mercedes, and Ferrari. Let's have a look to find out why the FIA wants to get rid of it. So, see for yourself and leave a comment below if you think the changes are needed. Let's first look at Mercedes. Here we clearly see the front wing moving under enormous aerodynamic load. This allows Mercedes to decrease downforce on the straights and regain it when the load is removed from the wing in slow corners. Next to this, it creates a disturbing wake along the wing into the path of a following car, and this is exactly the type of aerodynamics FIA want to ban. What about Ferrari? Their performances on track may lack, but their aerodynamic department stays on point regarding their wings. Let's have a look. Well, it may not have as many moving parts as Mercedes' front wing, but this one surely flexes even more. The top flap comes down multiple centimeters to further decrease downforce and in hand increase more speed. Maybe this is why they were so fast at Zandvoort. Now finally, Red Bull, the record-breaking team with the most intriguing aerodynamic upgrades this season. Surely they'll have an interesting setup, right? And yes, they do. And when looking at it, it's clear that it doesn't move as much as other wings, but this wing is intended to create more downforce than the one Mercedes and Ferrari were sporting, so it's obvious it doesn't move that far. But it is interesting to note that the flex stays for a long time. Maybe they found a way to reduce the needed load to flex. Well, what are your thoughts? It's clear to see all these wings flex. Some more than others, but they're flexing. After all, this makes the FIA's point clear. The new TD will surely make the teams have to remove these wings from their setup. So who will be impacted the most? Or will we find out that the flex doesn't really help after all? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. One thing is certain, and that is that this weekend we'll see some of the wings for the last time. So set up a front wing cam and enjoy it for the last time.